Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast. I have no clue what episode this is going to be, and this is a good thing because we're running out of. I'm completely forgotten, and that means it's building and the numbers getting higher and higher. Anyway, sorry, I'm chatting rubbish. I've got a crazy cool guest today. Actually, a real friend of mine, and we've got a funny story of how we reconnected. Actually, so we'll delve into that in a little while. He's also written a book which is strategically placed right next to him with his name right there as well. You don't have to believe that is the name of the book. But we go way back, and you yourself are a coach, and you kind of help people with their, I guess probably the best way to put it is with their mindset, their thoughts,
Yes.
and I guess almost metacognition, so the thoughts behind the thoughts kind of thing. Would you say that's right?
Kind of, yes. Well, look, pleasure to be here, Amit. And
Oh,
yes.
sorry, Manish, by the way.
Yes. I'm Manish. We're actually distantly related. My brother-in-law is Amit's brother.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
we've known each other for many years, but we reconnected a few years ago. So it's going to, again, some mutual friends of ours were meeting up, and then we all met up together, and it's like we're brothers from another mother, really.
It is true, isn't it? And it was crazy how it all happened, because the last time we properly saw each other was at my brother's stag, which was, I think, 99.
It would be 99. Yeah.
99, yeah. And then obviously we'd lost touch. Like you were a lot older than me at that stage in life.
Still am.
So, well, you are. No, you're not that much. But now we're like, it feels like we're the same age. But it's funny though. You to me there was more like a much older person in a way. I know it sounds a bit offensive, right? So I didn't see you after that, but it just so happens I made a friend in 2012, Cam, became one of my best mates, and he moved to Australia in 2014. And then randomly in 2015 or whenever it was, he sent a picture, and I think it was from Garba or something. And the picture had you in it. And I was like, no way, I know this guy. And then that's how we all kind of reconnected. And you ended up being best friends with Cam as well. And
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and so that's how we sort of reconnected again. Then you moved back to the UK.
Yes.
Got sick of Oz, eh? Sick
Well,
of the
no,
sand,
not-
surf.
Not at all. I mean, I'm happy to tell you my story whenever. But yeah, the plan is to go back to Australia at some point. So, I mean, born and brought up here, but the weather's a bit miserable here in the UK, isn't it?
It's pretty pants.
And so me and my daughter, we've got Australian passports. So the plan is at some stage, when she's kind of doing her thing, then head back and kind of grow old in the sun.
It's crazy because I never used to complain about the UK weather, but I reckon the last decent summer we had was 2021, and since then we haven't really had a proper summer. It's just been, 1 or 2 days of sunshine here or there, then it rains, and weather never used to affect me, but now I feel it more and more. And as I get older, I think to myself, I could so easily imagine myself moving to somewhere a lot warmer. I doubt for me it'd be Australia, but it could be. My wife kind of likes Portugal. I like Spain, potentially Dubai. There was a great TikTok I saw the other day of this guy, and he was talking about the narration was fantastic. It was so funny. I left a third world country, he's talking about the UK, to go live in this beautiful paradise. He's talking about Dubai, just showing obviously the weather, the lifestyle. He goes, I can wear my expensive watch without worrying it's going to get nicked. My kids are safe. It's a wholesome community. But I'm just so glad I left this third world country. And, we don't want to complain where we are. And it's funny because I speak to people who are not from the UK who move here and they're like, yeah, I love it. But when you've lived here and you've kind of seen how it's gone from something quite good to probably not something as good, then it just makes you feel like, and it's not just a political thing, it's the sun thing, sunshine, the weather.
It is, but yeah, I mean, we'll get to talk more about this, but so you asked me kind of what I do. It's like, the way I describe myself is I'm an expert on how the mind works. And I help people understand how their thinking drives their experience of life. Nice. And effectively how their thinking determines their feelings. So in some ways, the weather has no impact at all on how you feel.
Exactly.
But it depends on how you think about it.
Exactly. Right. We're going to come back to that in 1 second. One thing I forgot to do, of course, I've got my Spark Conversations cards as well. I just had a huge order of these as well, and I've just posted them out today. But each of these questions has got each of these cards has got a question on there. So we're just going to riffle through and pick one at random. Say stop.
Stop.
Alrighty. Oh, okay, cool. This is an interesting one. Maybe not relevant for you because you have a partner, but what's a good first date activity to get to know each other and why? E.g. ice skating or something else. So if you were dating right now in this day and age, what would you do as a first date activity to get to know? So maybe if you're rekindling with your partner and you want to take them out as if it was a first date, what would you do now?
All right. Well, that's a great question. And okay, so Dina, you're like this, but if I was meeting you for a first date now, I'd take you to play paddle. So
I love it.
yeah, it's. I mean, if you haven't heard of paddle, then it's blowing up here in the UK. It's been around for many years. It's actually starting back in the 70s, but it's such a fun, dynamic, and social game that you find that you're smiling most of the time. And so to me, that'd be a great first date. Something active, something fun, and it'd just be brilliant.
I had a moment recently where I was ready to quit badminton. I've been playing for 25 years, longer than that actually, but like I retook it up again 25 years ago, literally almost to the day. And there was a part of me that was very tempted to move away from it, and paddleball was my first thought. So I love the concept of it, and I haven't played it yet ever.
Okay.
But I think the skills do translate to a certain degree. Especially the hand-eye coordination. So I'd love to go play. But I think it's a great idea as a first date. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for going for a coffee and stuff, but make it fun. If you genuinely already know the person a little bit and you get on really well, do something a bit more fun, interactive, and just go crazy.
Well, if you remember your first date smiling most of the time, isn't that what it's all about? Then you want to do it again?
Yeah. I mean, mine with Nidhi was we just went for a walk in the park. But we had a great time. We loved it.
Yeah.
And we still talk about it all the time because, it was just one of those things. Although the date just sounds very dull, but we really enjoyed the walk. We went to a park near here called Black Park. If you've never been there, by the way, it's one of my favorite places in the UK. Well, actually, I say in London. It makes you feel you're not in London. There's big tall trees, makes you feel like you're almost like in Canada or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we went for a date there. We just enjoyed it. We went for a drink afterwards, and we had a great time. And of course, it did the trick. It worked. We're
Beautiful.
married now. So yeah. Anyway, all right, cool. I love the answer to that question. So let's talk more about the mind and some of the. Let's talk. All right, let's start with this angle. Talk about some of the tricks because we mentioned the weather.
Yes.
We Brits are particularly skillful about complaining about the weather, and I'm falling into that trap myself. I completely admit. So it's one of those things that we have no control over, but truly that doesn't necessarily have to have an effect on our mindset or our well-being or how we're feeling in the moment. Correct? Yes. True or false?
No, absolutely true. Absolutely true. So think of it this way. It's like, so just a little bit of background about me. So I used to be an investment manager for 20 odd years. And then my marriage at the time was breaking down. So I wanted to be a full-time dad for my now 16-year-old daughter. So she was 6 at the time. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to quit full-time kind of corporate world and be a full-time dad. And then during the time when she's at school, what will I do? And that's when I came across coaching. And what I did in that time was I did a coaching qualification, but I did lots of reading because what I wanted to understand is why do we feel the way we do? Yeah, what drives our emotions, our feelings? And so I read, and then I applied that to what I read to my life to see if it worked. If it did, I kept doing it, and if it didn't, I'd stop doing it. And that's when this understanding that all of our emotions at every single point in our life are not coming from our circumstances. They're coming from our thinking in that moment. And that changed my life, literally. You're feeling, you're thinking at all times. So effectively, perhaps another way of describing it is that you're not experiencing your life from the outside in via circumstance. You're experiencing it from the inside out via thought. And there is a very simple proof for that, because there can be two people in exactly the same circumstance that feel completely differently. True?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, there's two of us here right now. Now, we could be feeling completely differently right now. So it cannot be our circumstance that drives how you feel. And what is it? It's always thought. So it's how you think about the circumstance. Or it might not be how you think about the circumstance, it's just how you're thinking in that moment. And once you get that, then you see that actually you're never a victim of your circumstance. And that's so important to kind of understand and appreciate. And it's what I call the game of hide and seek that we're constantly playing, where we think it's our circumstances driving how we feel, but it's not. So that understanding that you're feeling, you're thinking keeps hiding. And then you see it again and you go, oh, that's why I feel lousy. I've got some lousy thinking happening right now. And that's the essence of how I spend the rest of how I want to spend the rest of my life now, just helping people understand that very simple but profound concept that you're feeling, you're thinking at all times.
Nice. And that is the title of the book as well. It's about not believing your thoughts and stuff, because we do buy into it, and we could be sitting there thinking about anything, mundane. I talk a lot about this, about in terms of the dating and how people feel and how they respond to what's happening to them. And they're perhaps messaging someone, it's not gone well, they haven't responded. I did talk about this today. So someone messaged and said, I've tried to contact someone, they haven't responded back. What do I do? And I said, you do realize on my singles WhatsApp group, I've got 96 people waiting to join. However, I've messaged all 96 of them, and 6 people have responded. And there's 90 pending to respond to me. I get it all the time as well. People don't always respond to me, but one thing I don't do is sit there, stagnate and ruminate about it, because that's your precious time that is getting wasted.
Correct.
That is not serving you in any way, shape or form. So you may as well just send what I suggest them, send a nice follow-up, and if it goes nowhere, don't worry about it. Just move on as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
So important question for you.
Yeah, tell me.
The chicken and the egg. Does your feelings come first or your thoughts?
Thoughts. Always thoughts. Yeah, so you might get a particular feeling, so you might get a physical sensation, okay? And that can drive a thought, which then drives another feeling. But it's always thought precedes feeling.
And where do those thoughts come from?
All right, so this is the interesting bit. So I'm glad you asked me that. It's a question kind of which I ask, and most people ask themselves, where does our thinking come from? But let me just kind of reframe that. Do we ask, why does our heart beat?
Yeah.
Why does our stomach process food? We don't ask those questions of why, or kind of where does it work, or kind of where does the mechanics come from. So if you think of your mind as another organ, another part of your body, the job of that mind is to create thoughts. They don't necessarily come from anywhere. So they may come from some history and some memory and stuff, but they might be completely random. And that's the beautiful thing about the mind, that we all have fresh new thinking at some point in time. And so the question of where do our thoughts come from perhaps isn't the best question to ask, but it's just to accept and understand that. Did you know we have about 60,000 thoughts a day? Yeah, there's 84,000 seconds in a day.
Yeah.
So we roughly have a thought every second.
Yeah.
So you have a thought, and then another one,
Yeah.
and then another one. So we could spend all of our time trying to figure out where they're coming from, or just accept that our mind is a thought-creating machine. That's what it does. Now, you could logically say, okay, well, if you just want to feel good and you know that you're feeling your thinking, you just have to have positive thoughts. Mm-hmm. But the question which I asked myself was that, can you control your thoughts? And I don't know what you think, Amit. Do you think you can control your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's
to a certain degree. I mean, you're not there. I'm not sitting here to control my thoughts all the time. You're going to get exhausted doing that. But can I control them if I wanted to? Absolutely.
Right. So this is what I found, that, and I've done thought experiments on this, that even for 30 seconds, if you sit still and try and control your thoughts, it's not possible. You can focus your mind on something and try and focus on that activity or whatever it is you're trying to work on, but you'll notice that your thoughts drift, even in 30 seconds. So the truth is, you actually can't control your thoughts. But here's the gift, and this is the kind of reason I wrote the book, is that the secret sauce and this understanding is that you don't have to try and control your thoughts. Okay, your thoughts are neutral; they have no power over you unless you believe them. But you have a superpower. I mean, you do, I do, and every human being does, and that's the gift of choice. We can choose which thoughts we believe. So it's like a menu. You have 60,000 items on your menu every day, 60,000 thoughts. And you can pick and choose which ones you believe. Now, hopefully, choosing which thoughts you believe is a lot easier than trying to control your thoughts, because trying to control them takes effort. Picking which ones to believe is less effort, because you're just discarding thoughts. And that's why I call my book, You Don't Have to Believe That. It's helping people see that their superpower is that when they feel lousy, that's a signal. That's a signal from their mind saying, okay, stop and don't trust your thinking in this moment, because you have some lousy thinking creating that lousy feeling. Does that make sense?
Oh, God, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And so to me, that very simple understanding, I mean, it almost sounds obvious. And yet all of us forget it. I forget it every day. And I go, oh, this has happened. That makes me feel a bit angry or sad or scared. But then I realize, oh, wait there. No, it's my thinking that's making me feel angry, sad or scared. And that's the game that we're constantly playing in life, that we drop in and drop out of this understanding that you're feeling, you're thinking, you can't control your thoughts, but you have a choice. You don't have to believe them.
Let's say I have, because I 100% get what you're saying, and I think it's so important for people to realize this. So let's say a thought pops into my head of someone, and this person is not you, by the way. Someone's really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Definitely not Manish.
Yeah.
But a thought of someone pops into my head. So what you're basically saying is I've got no control of that thought popping into my head. In fact, sometimes I just have no idea where some of my thoughts emerge from.
Correct.
But I have some associated feelings to that thought already.
Yes.
And this is where we can just sort of go to the next level of this as well. So anyway, the person's thought popped into my head. I have a thought, bitch, bastard, idiot, whatever. Yeah. I'm thinking not very nice thoughts about that person because I've perhaps associated events and feeling to that person.
Yes.
However, I have a choice. I can now choose to continue thinking that or reframe it in some way, or reconfigure that thought, or reconfigure my response to that thought in some way and think to myself, but why?
Yeah.
What does it serve me to hold on to these feelings for this person?
Correct.
Yeah. It's just giving that thought and that person power over me, which I don't need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's like, yeah, you can have all sorts of thoughts, and yeah, you could think someone bitch. Yeah. Now, what I
hope neither of us have got somebody in mind. Yeah.
No, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular.
No, me neither.
But so what I found is that every negative thought tends to be a judgmental thought. Yeah, so we'll either be judging ourselves, we'll be judging others, or we'll be judging our circumstances. And so just watch out for judgmental thoughts. They're the ones that make you feel lousy. So if you think someone has wronged you, okay, and that makes you angry, then effectively you're judging them because you're saying they are wrong. Now, the truth is that they may not have meant to wrong you, but the point being that judgmental thought and believing that judgmental thought is what makes you feel lousy. So you have a choice. You can reframe it. That's one thing you could do. Or something perhaps even less effort would be to just let it go. Because, as you know, I mean, when you forgive someone, even if they've wronged you, you're forgiving them for yourself, not for their sake. And because who suffers when you're judging someone? You do. Yeah. That makes no sense.
True. And that's why I'm really a fan of the Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute.
Outtakes, bloopers. The Ho'oponopono is very powerful, and I do that quite a lot as well. That's the 4-sentence phrase you can repeat thinking about someone, or you can just say it in your head, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I do that often, and I find that very, very powerful because of all the people I speak to on a daily basis, and there are many, there is moments where, and doing all the work I do as well, actually, there are times when people will push my buttons. Yes. And again, if I find myself ruminating on them, thinking about them, letting them live in my mind rent-free, I'll just do 10 seconds, 20 seconds of that. It's more than enough usually to, like you said, let it go.
Yes, exactly.
And most of the time it does anyway, because I think life is so friggin'... Actually, I'm going to change that word because I don't agree with that sentence as well. It's not that life is short, it's just that life is very precious and every moment is precious. Correct. And what we do with it, and what I choose to do with every moment that is in front of me is, it's ultimately going to define what my life ends up being and whether I enjoy myself or I end up living in bitterness. And I know I choose not to live in bitterness. And I remember... Tony Robbins talking about this once, and I think it was something new to him that he mentioned when I was at one of his UPWs, and he was speaking with someone, and they were saying, look, Tony, I want to give you something, there's a gift, because I know you kind of teach people to almost like be with your emotions, but I don't think that's the best way to go about it. And I kind of agree. I think this is not a case of suppressing our emotions. Correct. It's not a case of holding on to them or anything like that. And even when I see people say be with your emotions, I think that sentence is often misinterpreted. But this guy said to Tony, he said, look, think about beautiful states. Do you want to remain in that state, holding on to that, living, using every precious microsecond, thinking about that feeling and that person or what has happened, the event that's happened, whatever? Or do you want to live in a beautiful state? So you present yourself with a very simple choice.
Yes.
What do you want to do? Live in that beautiful state, or do you want to live in that feeling?
Yeah.
And then you kind of realize, oh yeah, actually, this is a very good point. I don't want to live in that feeling. I want to live in beautiful states. And there is no, for me, I think it does take time to work on this, to practice it like anything else.
Yes.
You know, the mind being a muscle and being a reflex organ, we have to practice these things. We have to change our habits, right? And that's the next thing I want to talk to you about,
Yeah.
which is the habitual thinking, and more deeper than that. So at one level, you've got maybe just the habit of thinking about certain things.
Yeah.
And then you've got the next level where potentially it's a very trauma inflicted thing that has happened to you. Perhaps you were in an abusive relationship. And so it's, you know, that the other person may have been very nasty to you. Again, this is something I see in my work day to day. The person may have been very nasty, very, you know, very cold and calculated, very narcissistic, very abusive. And so when that person has finally escaped that relationship, it's only natural they're going to, you know, feel resentment. They're going to feel animosity. They're going to feel like, how dare that person do what they did to me. They, you know, that caused me all this pain, that caused me all this anxiety. So when it comes to someone like that, so what would you suggest then? And then of course, so two facets. We've got the one, it's the sort of habituated thoughts.
Yes.
And the second thing is when it's even deeper, where it's trauma related.
Yes. Okay. All right. So let's tackle those things. So just wanted to touch on what you said. I guess I love catchphrases. One of my favourites, and I say this to my daughter all the time, is get upset, don't stay upset.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, because
Simple.
life's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You will get angry. You will get judgmental. And I do it. And what I try to do is not stay in that state for as long. Now, to answer your question in terms of kind of habitual thoughts, if you think of this way, habitual thoughts are effectively beliefs, things that you believe to be true, because in your head you believe that thought, and then you keep having that same thought again and keep agreeing with it. So that's all habitual thoughts are. You keep agreeing with the same thought when it pops into your head. Remember, you can't control them, right? So I had a thought, this sounds like a very innocent thought, right? Be kind. Right, and that can be your belief system, to be kind, and that doesn't sound harmful at all. But imagine if you strongly believe in that habitual thought, be kind, and then at any point in time you're not kind, you're in danger of judging yourself, saying, "Look, I wasn't kind in that instance. That wasn't good enough." So what I do with habitual thoughts, or if you want to call them beliefs, is I've downgraded all of my beliefs to preferences. So my preference is to be kind, and therefore I'll try and be kind as much as possible. But if on occasions I'm not kind, then I'll say sorry.
Nice.
I'll forgive myself, say thank you, and I love you. Just what you said earlier. So that's one thing you can do with habitual thoughts. And remember, everything you think, so everything that goes on between your ears, Amit, and this is for everyone, just remember it's made up. It's a story that's playing. Okay, you can't control the story, but it's made up. Now, understanding that it's made up hopefully makes it easier to not take it so seriously. And that's one of the secrets of life. The Joker got it right when he said this. Why so serious? Yeah.
I love that scene.
We take things too seriously. Well, we take our thinking too seriously, is what makes us feel lousy. So the moment you stop taking your thinking so seriously, life becomes easier. So that's on the kind of the habitual thinking. In terms of, okay, so if you've been abused, so you've had some trauma.
And it could be anything. I mean,
it could be
necessarily have to be, you know, a relationship.
Yeah.
This could be absolutely anything, right? You could have seen something very traumatic. I often tell people about the experience I had when I was younger, when this was in 2003 or 4, I think, where I saw someone jump out of a window and kill themselves. You know, again, that image, it was, and to this day, still seared into my head.
Yes.
But when I think about it, for a long time, it would affect me. Now I'd say it doesn't. And it's not because I've detached myself emotionally. It's more because I would say I've more reframed that.
Yes.
And it's just every time I think about that, I think about, what do I want to do in this moment? What do I want my life to be about? What kind of, it's a conversation I've been having a lot with people right now, which is, what do you want your epitaph to be, like your eulogy? So I was at a funeral for one of the radio presenters that passed away at sunrise yesterday, and the speeches were beautiful, really beautiful. Yeah. And they, you know, one or two of them said it in their speech. You know, he was by no means a perfect soul, But one thing this guy did well was he knew he was the master of sort of self marketing as such, or making a mark, or being a personality,
Right.
taking risks, not playing it safe, and really like going balls to the wall. And so I think about this a lot, and I think to myself, look, I can either sit there and, you know, suffer for that one thought, reliving that thought in my head, in which case I am literally living that moment again and again in my head,
Yes.
or I can choose to reframe it and let it mean something beautiful, that where I can now uplift people, move people away from that suffering,
Yes.
so they live in a beautiful emotional state rather than a bad emotional state. You know, these are being relative terms, but you know, one feels good, one doesn't feel good, one feels good.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yes, I mean, well, here's a kind of a different perspective on kind of past events.
Mm-hmm.
It could be positive events or traumatic events. So they're stored thought now. They no longer exist in this moment. And remember, the only moment that actually exists is this moment right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the past is stored thought, memory, if you want to call it that. The future is just your imagination. So that brings you back to this present moment. So if you can then kind of effectively reframe your trauma as this is now stored thought. And here's the funny thing about the mind. Even our memories, our mind has this habit of changing the story or kind of the facts of the past. So even if something has happened, when you recall it, it might not be an accurate reflection of what's happened. And understanding that, again, the message here is that, okay, you can keep going back to that stored thought, or again, you might not be able to control your thinking heading in that direction, but you don't have to give it as much attention. You can say, okay, fine, that thought's come up. It's got no power over me. It's completely neutral now. And I can choose to focus on it, or I can choose not to believe it and just get on with what I'm doing today. So I know that sounds easier said than done. And I get it that people have gone through kind of difficult, big trauma. But remember, even words like big, large, difficult, those are adjectives. Where are they made up? They're made up in thought. So the moment we call something big, it gives it greater meaning in our head. And so I almost visualize balloons in my head. Yeah, the moment I call something big, it then starts consuming my mind. And so and you can remind yourself that no event has an adjective associated with it. And so calling it big is not actually going to help you. So again, just don't take that so seriously. It was an event that happened in the past. Now it's up to you to choose if you want to keep reliving it by giving that thought attention, or if you want to just accept that it will pass through your mind and it might never go away completely, but that's okay. Thoughts are neutral. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me, yeah.
Yeah, and look, I get it. Remember, we will all, it's hide and seek. We're constantly slipping into our thinking and we're slipping out. And something which kind of really kind of touched me when I heard this is that we all have mental health built in. Yeah, it's just that we don't know it. And because there's so much talk about mental health, okay? And to me, what mental illness is the inability to see the role of thought and how it kind of drives your moment-to-moment experience of life. So when you kind of hear that we're all mentally healthy, it's just that sometimes we take our thinking seriously, then you realize that you're actually just one thought away from a new experience and a new feeling. And you're just one thought away from being content and peaceful again. And to me, I don't know how that sounds to you, but that just feels so reassuring to know that actually we're built perfectly. And in fact, lousy feelings are a bit like a messenger. So I play a lot of sports, and sometimes my knee gets inflamed. I've got no cartilage left in my left knee. So the inflammation in my knee, it's sending me a message, and that message is to stop and rest. Lousy feelings, whatever they are, sad, mad, scared, those are the three main kind of lousy feelings. They're like an inflammation of the mind, and they're sending me a message to say stop and don't trust my thinking in that moment. That's how well designed we are, that even lousy feelings are part of the kindness of the design of being human. They're sending you that message. So when you start to see all of this, then you start to see how beautiful life is, because we're built so well. We're designed to handle whatever happens to us, knowing that it's only ever thought that creates the lousy feelings. And then we can just navigate through life much more effortlessly.
Yeah. Do you, I don't know about you, but this thought often crosses my mind a lot about this lens of modernity we have, where, especially I think this is a bit more prevalent with maybe Gen Zs, Generation Alphas, and now or as I like to call it, Generation Beta, Betas they call it, right? I mean, who knows what their experience of life will be, but in particular the millennials and Gen Zs, there is the hot topic of trauma, generational trauma, and I know there is a lot of science backing this up in terms of literally even, from the womb, pre-womb, parental trauma can be passed on into our genes. And Gabor Mate talks about this a lot. But even when that is there, I do feel that sometimes it can become quite a big excuse. It can become quite a big hindrance to people, because again, the thought crops up, they associate meaning to it, which creates feeling, and then they allow that feeling to then become a story, a narrative, plays out in their head, becomes essentially the blueprint of their life in that moment, and they struggle to make that association.
Yeah.
But I see it a lot, especially on social media, kids talking about, the generational trauma that they've got from their parents, and they blame their parents, and it's all because of them. And I think to myself, wow, it's crazy how latched on we can get into our stories, and ultimately how much of a powerhouse of an excuse it can become.
Correct.
For our behavior.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it's you're right. I mean,
and you've got a Gen Z daughter, I was going to say as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen her in an element. I'm not around kids that much at the moment, but I'm sure maybe you've seen her in an element, and maybe with friends or whatever. Is that something you see? And that sometimes do you ever, if you see it, do you ever kind of want to go and just like shake them sometimes? And when you see this happening,
no, not so much shake them, but I guess what I have noticed when with my daughter, for example, is her and her friends, they use the word stressed a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm stressed. And initially, I mean, I love my daughter to bits, and when I hear she's stressed, in my initial reaction is, oh no, what do I do to fix this? But now I realise that actually it's just a word that they use very commonly, like I'm hungry. And
but he said that's a bloke response, isn't it? I think that's just us wanting to fix things.
Exactly, yes. Actually, side topic here, but in my house now, it's like because being a coach, having this understanding about where your feelings come from, I often jump into fixing. So now when my partner or my daughter talk, I ask them, do you want me to listen or fix? And if they say listen, I pause.
It's great if you have the wherewithal to do that. Something I'm still working on as well. But
yes, and I found that's been really helpful, because the number of times they just bite my head off, going, don't try and fix this. Don't try and coach me. So yes,
I did a video about this the other day as well, and I was just talking about so many problems. Some of the problems in relationships are just always going to be there for the simple yin and yang. Men will deal with things with logic. Women will deal with emotion. Men will want to fix. Women will want to be heard. Or there's simple yin and yang. But it doesn't matter how many times you explain this to people. How much content is out there. It will be there until you develop your own wherewithal, where you're able to ask yourself a simple question like that. It happened to a couple that met through us recently, and they were going through a rough patch. It was funny, actually. It was actually, they became public, and then it kind of went through a bit of a rough patch.
Right.
So I kind of talked her through it, just over voice notes, over WhatsApp, and touchwood, she's saying basically it's all good now. At one point, literally a couple of days before, they were broken up, but they met and managed to sort it out. So
yeah.
But again, a lot of that was coming through that miscommunication, the misunderstanding of just the ways that men and women simply communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I guess to touch on kind of what you raised a bit earlier in terms of, I guess what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of labeling that we keep applying to ourselves. Like we have this condition, that condition. Yeah. And the moment we start labeling ourselves, then we think it's permanent. And if we think it's permanent, then we can think we can't solve it. Yeah. Now, like I said, look, we're all built mentally healthy. And so to me, it's not helpful to say this person has this condition, has an anxiety disorder. No, they don't. They're just taking the thinking too seriously.
Oh, God, you've hit on a subject that I'm really passionate about right now. Like, I think, again, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt
that's
as well.
okay.
I just wanted to say, like, I completely
Yeah.
hear what you're saying. I actually posted this. I was coaching a client live, and I posted that live coaching, took the client out, but I posted it, and I was talking about this because the person mentioned that they were on the spectrum, Spurges, and I genuinely have this theory that we're all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I've got my fair share of OCD. I think that technically is on the spectrum to a certain degree, and so I think, but you can tell what was coming, and I've done this enough that I could see it was coming was a narrative.
Yes.
That it was the hindrance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got Asperger's, so therefore I am, like this is an issue. And I'm like, no, it's not an issue unless you make it an issue in your thoughts, in your mind. Same thing.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
anxiety is a huge one I've been talking about a lot recently.
Yeah, so hopefully it's reassuring to hear that actually none of us have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And that means...
said those words to a client recently, those exact words.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
So to me, that means that it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the moment you see how thought is creating that feeling, you go, it's okay. And knowing that you can handle any situation in your life. So I guess what that brings me to, and what I feel like saying is that I spend a lot of time trying to understand what's happiness, because we all talk about the end game for all of us is we want to be happy. Yeah, everything we do is to either make ourselves or make our loved ones happy. It's that's pretty much the basic rule of life for everyone. So then I thought, well, what does happiness even mean? I tried to define it, and I boiled it down to, for me, just two things. The first thing is applying your full attention to what's in front of you right now. In other words, being present. And the second part is not being judgmental. Yeah, because the moment we become judgmental, we're not really present because we're up in our head.
Yeah.
And so it's just those two things, being present and not being judgmental. And those two things don't actually cost anything. Yeah. And we keep slipping out of that. We're not present most of the time, and we tend to be judgmental quite a lot of the time. But defining happiness in that way, you can then disassociate your happiness from what you do in life. Because too many people make their happiness conditional. So how many times have you heard yourself say the phrase, I will be happy when?
I don't say that anymore, but I used to say that a long time ago.
Yeah, and okay, so
Yeah.
yeah. So
But yeah, it's definitely slipped out now and again, though. But no, I hear you.
yeah, so the half, I mean, I do it. I'll
Yeah.
be happy when.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy when I achieve this, when I've got this level of financial wealth, when I've achieved this in terms of my goals in life, and when I've done my purpose. And so we make our happiness conditional. Happiness is actually unconditional, because if it's based on being present and non-judgmental, then it's unconditional. And if you think about it, look at young children. They don't make their happiness conditional. They're very present. Okay, they tend not to be that judgmental.
Or dogs.
Yeah, or dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're born happy. It's our default state. It's only our thinking that ever takes us away from being happy. And one of the ways it does that is by saying, I will be happy when, setting conditions for happiness. So the way I see it is that our natural state is to be happy. Keep that separate from what you do. Now, and effectively it means that you don't need to achieve, do, be, or think anything to be happy. It's separate. From that place, you can achieve amazing things. I mean, look at young children. Look at their ability to learn a language without actually being taught the language, to soak up so much information. And they're not doing that because they need to do that to be happy. They're already happy. They're doing it because it looks fun to them. They're curious. Now imagine living your whole life from that place where you know your happiness is built in, and then you do things because it looks fun and you're curious. It's a great way to live.
Have you ever listened to Mo Goddat's happiness?
Solve for happy.
Solve for happy. Sorry.
Solve for happy.
Sorry. I don't know why I said happiness equation, but solve for happy.
And I think he talks about something very similar, doesn't he?
Yeah, and of course, for anyone who has never heard of it, obviously he wrote this book shortly after his son passed away. I think it was about a month after his son passed, and you would think that someone being able to talk about even the subject of happiness a month after their son has passed would be, almost impossible. But he goes through this whole process, and he's so eloquent in the way he talks about it, and puts this concept forward. I loved that book.
Well, it's funny because it's interesting you say that, because what triggered me to write my book was it was January 2021. My dad was in hospital. He was close to dying from COVID. And I thought to myself, I want to write a book. I've got something really useful to share here. And that was my trigger. It was to say, okay, look, our mortality, I felt my mortality. Yeah, seeing my dad near death. And I thought, I've got something really useful to share. I need to put this down on paper. And that's when I just started dictating kind of chapters. This is January 2021. So, yeah, sometimes it's a trigger. Something happens in your life and can be something traumatic.
And it is. Sometimes the biggest events can either go one of two ways. Either we really grow from it, or people go into suffering. And this, for me, is where I'm at a point where I can consciously decide whenever something big comes in front of me, but I make that choice. Do I want it to mean this, or do I want it to mean this? What is going to be the ultimate outcome for this for me? And, a couple of friends passing away recently, and both very young guys, 47, 45. I'm older than both of them, but it just, it's only natural. It's going to cause you to think and evaluate your own life. And it caused me to think. And even now I think about how much time I waste in useless pursuits. Again, I know this is, hey, I do judge myself sometimes, and that's natural. But sometimes how much time I waste in useless pursuits. But then I remind myself, look, you can continue doing that. You've got a choice in this moment. Continue doing that, or actually do something about it. Continue complaining about it and bitching and moaning about myself about it, or I could do something about it. And so I think to myself, right, okay, let's go do something about it.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, it's like I'm a big fan of Alan Watts.
Yes,
and I don't know if you've ever listened to his stuff, but he's got a great quote where he says, the purpose of life is to be alive. Yeah. That's it. It's so simple and so obvious, and yet we all rush around in a great panic as if there's something greater to achieve. Yeah. And again, that comes back to this whole making our happiness conditional. So when you stop making your happiness conditional, you live it fully, you live it more present, you live it less judgmental, and it just enhances the whole experience. And that helps in every aspect of your life in terms of peak performance. It helps in terms of your relationship, not only with others, but with yourself. Because who's the biggest judge of ourselves? We are. Yeah, and when you start to see that actually that's not self-love to judge yourself, you do it less. So you still do it. I mean, I do it all the time. I do it every day, but I catch it more quickly now. So that's the game, the hide and seek, that to catch yourself when you're judging yourself. And there'll be phrases like when you hear yourself say, I should have, or I could have, or those are judgmental thoughts, because what you're doing is you're comparing what you've done to your expectations, judgment. Okay. It could be what if, the fearful thoughts that come in. So it's words like that. Yeah, just watch out for them because they're pointing to some sort of judgmental thinking happening in that moment.
Absolutely. I have these two master lessons of life. Number one is getting yourself to do the things you know you need to do when you don't feel like doing them. So an example of that could be exercise, going to the gym, playing sport, whatever. Meditate, whatever it could be absolutely anything. We all know it's good for us to do these things, but often we don't do it because we're either feeling lazy or distractions come in the way or whatever it might be. It could be absolutely anything, but getting yourself to do the thing you know you need to do when you don't feel like doing it. So an example of this though, and an analogy is I say to people, I'm training for my 4th marathon, and the real leveling up comes not like if I'm tired and I just say to myself, don't go to the gym. I've missed out on probably the best opportunity for growth at that point, both ways, mentally and physically. Because it's at that moment, if I'm tired and I go to the gym and I still train, is when my body will be like, oh, there's more to do. So I have to keep going. I have to level up from it. Yeah. So practically when I'm training for a marathon, I've got to be mindful of myself, stopping, thinking, and letting that story come in. Oh, I'm a bit tired. Maybe I should rest. Maybe I should just have a little, but instead saying, no, actually, I'm going to go anyway. I'm knackered from yesterday's training and I've got a grueling week ahead of me of training, but I'm going to go anyway straight after this podcast. So that's the first lesson number one. And the second is applying what you know when you need it the most. So knowing what you're teaching right now, for example, it's great when people hear it. I hear something, I learned something from Mo Goddat's book, whatever book. But if I don't have the wherewithal, the ability to take it in and then apply it as I go about my day-to-day life, otherwise it's just useless to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it is meditating, whether it's a bit of mindful practice, whether it's being just more observant of your thoughts and being able to then interrupt some of those patterns and, not take control but take charge, just do something else. What was the word you used? Not take control, but you said, what was it? What was the word you used? Not control your thoughts, but
Well, you don't have to believe them.
dismiss them and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, let
right?
them go. Let them go.
Let them go. Exactly. So those are kind of two of the master lessons I talk about in life that we, that are fundamental for us. And the other thing I was going to say was, you talked about, I know Mogo Dat uses it in his book, and you mentioned it. I'm always a little bit reluctant with this word happiness, only because I think so many people have conflated it with temporary happiness.
Yes.
You bought a car, you've launched a book, you've done this and whatever.
Yes.
And those are very temporary happy experiences.
Yeah.
But that true happiness, that true fulfillment, that when you just sit in the moment and can be in a state of an enjoyment, of
Yes.
pleasure, of feeling good, a feeling I don't necessarily have to go do something to feel good. I can actually feel good right now by just choosing to
Content.
and putting myself in that beautiful state. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you absolutely, all those things I agree with. And I guess I think of happiness as contentment, and contentment comes with a quiet mind. Yes, when our mind tends to be busy, we tend not to be happy because it's revving up. It's revving us up and thinking, I need to do this, or I must do that. Yeah, but then when we realise that's just our mind playing games on us, then it naturally quietens by itself. And the beautiful thing is that, yes, you can do things to quieten the mind. Exercise is a great way of doing that. Meditation is another way. Taking a walk in nature. All those things, which you've probably heard many times before, are great ways to quieten the mind. But doing nothing at all to quieten the mind is also another way. Yeah. It's just not revving it up by saying, okay, that's a serious thought. That's a big thought. So yeah, that's something I just wanted to share, that it's okay. You don't have to do anything. Yeah, you're built perfectly.
It's so true. So leave a couple of tips for everyone in terms of what can people do if they're going through a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, struggling with any particular area of life, whether it be dating, relationships, finance, job. How can people gain a sense of calm, relief, feel a sense of happiness, joy in the moment? What's some practical steps that people can take right now?
Okay, so this one's huge for me. Okay, is that focus on what's in your control and accept everything else. Because how much time do we spend focusing on things out of our control? I find that for most people, including myself, that can be a lot of our time. So that's almost just a rule 101. If in terms of when you're feeling stressed or any kind of difficult circumstance, just go, what's in my control here? Yeah, because what that does is you feel empowered again the moment you do that. And you have to accept everything else because you can't do anything about it. And because the problem is, if you don't accept what's out of your control, then you're fighting with reality. And I guarantee you, 100% of the time, if you fight with reality, you'll lose, because it is what it is. And I know it's a very cliched phrase, but that is the only truth at any point in time, is what is right now. That's the only single truth there is. So that's tip number one, and probably the most powerful tip I could give, is that just focus at all times and ask yourself the question, what's in my control here? You'll bring the power back to yourself. Okay.
Simple and easy.
Yeah, nice and easy, that one. And then it's, I guess I put it in my book, is I said, look, when you feel that you've lost your way and you don't feel happy in that moment, okay, first, don't take your thinking so seriously. Secondly, accept what's out of your control. And thirdly, remove all conditions for happiness.
Yeah.
And know that you can handle whatever happens to you. Because guess what? Your track record is, you've got 100% track record of handling everything that's happened to you, because you're still alive. If you're not alive, then you won't be hearing this anyway.
Yeah.
If you're alive, you have handled everything that's happened to you. And therefore, that gives you the evidence to know that you will continue to handle everything. So trust yourself. Yeah, trust you'll handle it. No matter what the situation is, how difficult you might think it is, you'll handle it.
And you've got a daughter, of course, 16 now.
Yes.
So obviously there's going to be a lot of youngsters, and you being a dad probably have more experience than I do of talking to the younger generation in this day and age. What's some of your nuggets for some of the youngsters who may be feeling stressed, going through their own fair share of trauma, challenge, and we do live in a fairly challenging world, I think, in this day and age. And so, what some of the things they can do practically to not put so much pressure on themselves, maybe not get so caught up in their own thoughts, their own anxieties, and be able to enjoy their existence. Because that's one thing the youngsters, obviously, if I think back to when I was 16, I didn't care about the length of life.
Yes.
But, I think nowadays these youngsters are going to start to realize their mortality much younger than we have. So what's your advice to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually go into schools and I do workshops for typically the 13, 14-year-olds to help them understand how the mind works. Everything we've been talking about today. And what I do is I share with them what we talked about, your feeling, your thinking. You can't control your thoughts, but you don't have to believe them. And remember, they're all made up. But then I also go into the different kind of instruments that the judge in our head uses. So that's the practical side of it. Things like labeling things, labeling yourself, labeling your circumstances. Yeah. Again, it's pointing to the fact that when you label things, that can tend to have a negative impact. Or not always, but it can do. Knowing that you have your expectations and then you have your reality, and seeing that when the two don't match, that's typically when you can feel unhappy with your situation. So when it comes to academic performance, that's a classic for young people where they may be putting pressure on themselves, their parents may be putting pressure on them, but that's just about expectations. Where do expectations sit? In thought. So again, helping them see that actually that expectations are completely made up too. So take the pressure off yourselves. What else? The strong attachment to any belief system. So again, we live in a world with information. There's so much information that we get that we tend to get quite polarized. Yeah, this is right, this is wrong. Watch out for those words. Yeah, the right and wrong and the good or bad. Remember, that's just your opinion. And there may be lots of people that agree with you. That doesn't make it wrong. Now, you might go, well, wait, there's certain things which are definitely wrong. Murder, rape, those types of things. Yeah, of course. Okay. So I'm not saying using labels like right or wrong and bad is harmful in itself, but just notice how you feel when you label something wrong or bad. And if it makes you feel lousy, sad, mad, or scared, know that the judge is in play again. So it's not so much about using labels. That's not a problem. It's about how it makes you feel. So use your feelings as a guide. Lousy feelings say, don't trust your thinking. When you feel calm and at peace and your mind feels quiet, then listen to your thinking. See where it directs you. And so this is what I share with young people. So the beautiful thing about the mind is it's the same, young or old. It operates in the same way. And this is why this understanding is so beautiful to share with anyone of any age, of any background. And it's just that I've got an affinity to young people. I've got a daughter, and 13, 14 is typically when the judge gets quite loud in their heads. So if they can start seeing from that young age how the judge plays that role, then they can catch it much quicker and therefore not let it affect them in the rest of their lives. Yeah. But it's never too late. Yeah, you could be 70, 80 and get this understanding. I talk to my dad about this. He's 80 all the time. And we have great conversations about this. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, your dad actually takes it on board.
Yeah, well, he's one of my greatest teachers. Yeah, he talked about universal consciousness many, many years ago, and I never understood what that meant, but now I see what he meant, and this is a little bit deeper, but I feel like sharing this is that even the concept of you, me, I, what is that? That's a label that we've attached to ourselves that we've made up in thought. The concept of I does not exist. So the phrase I love, which again I try and live my life, is that life happens through us, not to us. And therefore, and really what I'm pointing to there is that this body that we're living in right now is a vehicle for us to experience life as it is right now. Okay. The moment we start suffering, it often is because we attach events happening to us, because we get attached to this body and we say, okay, this is happening. Why is this happening to me? Why me? And that causes pain because we feel like it's happening to us. But what if we see that actually this me doesn't exist, so nothing can happen to you? And then you become like this superhuman with this huge shield that protects you from anything happening to you because you don't exist. So I get that sounds a little bit deeper, and perhaps that's worth kind of further talk another time.
I had a really in-depth conversation with ChatGPT about this the other day, talking about time being a construct of consciousness. The time doesn't actually really exist. About the universal concept of oneness, that at a physics level, this body doesn't exist.
Well, that's it.
It's 99.9999999% empty space. You know, you look at an atom. What is it? It's empty space. Mostly, you've got the nucleus, you've got the proton, the electron circling. But between that, what's there? Nothing.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, I mean, quantum physics. But then if you think about it logically, because I've got a very much kind of a left brain, logical brain, is when I saw that actually the concept of I is a made up label attached to this body, then you see that you and I might be different, but we're not separate. Yeah. We're only separate because we label ourselves as Amit and Manish. And then you can see that if we're not separate, it means that...
Could become Amish.
Yeah, Amish, yeah. Exactly.
We'll merge today.
Or MIT. Yeah. But the kind of the powerful concept in there is that we're all connected. Every living organism, everything that's alive right now is not separate, it's connected. And the beautiful thing about that is that when you see that, it becomes easy to love everyone. Yeah. It becomes easy to forgive everyone because you see they're just an extension of yourself. Yeah, this whole separation, and this is what happens when you have separation through thought in terms of you and me, separation through geography in terms of countries, that's what creates conflict. So when you drop all that separation and you see the oneness within all living organisms, life becomes beautiful again. And I know this sounds all wishy-washy and it sounds like that's easy for you to say, hard to apply, but you can drop back into that space of oneness at any point in time, which is what my dad was pointing to when I was young. He was going, universal consciousness means that there is just one. Yeah. It never dies. It's constant, yeah. This vehicle will die at some stage, but the oneness of energy never dies. So sometimes people ask me, do you believe in God? Well, I say, if God is defined as energy, absolutely, I believe in energy. So, and if you want to label that energy as God, then absolutely, I believe in God. But to me, this is also non-religious, more of a spiritual concept. And I'm conscious at all times that I'm using words to describe something which is an energy. And therefore, the meaning people take from the words I use will be different. But if you can see the essence of what I'm saying is that there is just a constant aliveness within all of us, an energy, then it becomes easy to love everyone.
Absolutely. Have you heard that quote? That religion is for those who believe in hell. Spirituality is for those who've been through it.
Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? Yeah.
I love that quote. That quote. Well, listen, man, it's been a real pleasure. How can people reach out to you and where can they get your book? Right,
so my book's on Amazon. It's you can get it paperback or Audible if you prefer listening to the book. If you want to reach out to me, then I mean, I'm sure you can share my email address and stuff like that.
And your Instagram?
And I'm on Instagram as well.
What's your Instagram handle?
Just Manish Pabari.
Sweet.
Yep.
Easy.
Nice and easy.
Nice and simple. Yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude. Thank you for being on the Feel Inspired podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Amit.
And to everyone else, make sure you like, subscribe, and check out the other episodes. And there'll be more episodes coming up in the future. But you've been an absolute awesome guest. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming on today and enlightening me and enlightening the universe.
Thank you so much, Amit.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man.